All right. Hello and welcome everyone back to Soulframe Scholar. It has been quite a minute since I have uploaded a video over here. Sorry, I have been in the midst of a going on 3 months in duration Streamathon over on the Twitch channel, which you should come check out over at twitch.tv/brosime. But I wanted to make a video going over basically Bromius, the new pact we got in P11 before we get Founders in 2 days, and that is going to be kicking off P12 for us. Because I assume a number of things will change, but probably whether or not Bromius is good isn't going to change much, and if anything, I suspect that this class will end up getting better as the game goes on. With that, this video, I'm going to explain a lot of stuff of just how everything works right now, so if you want to know how the game functions in large part, you should hopefully learn a lot by watching this video, even if you're not going to specifically go for Bromius. With that, Bromius is our new pact. It is our 8th pact that has been added to the game. And it is quite strong. The main strength is Rump Thump, which is going to be easier to explain just in practice, but basically this is a jump into the air, you smash down, and you kill everyone that you smash down on. This has a weird damage scaling that we're going to be talking about a lot. The second ability is Wevet Root. This is like kind of the most separate thing from Bromius' kit. This is basically some roots that you can shoot out that then stun the enemies that you hit with it by impaling them on the roots for like 8 seconds-ish. Pretty good. More niche than the 1 and more niche than the 3, which is Song of Growth. Song of Growth, this boosts the armor strength for you and all of your allies. This is very useful because Rump Thump scales based on your defenses and based on courage. So you can use this first to prime for Rump Thump to do a tremendous amount of damage, which in a lot of cases will kill things, including some of the harder bosses that currently exist in the game. In terms of the upgrade tree, we're on, well, what I would call probably the usual. I'm just going to explain how this works just on basically all of the classes at current. And also, of course, talk about the 2 unique buffs that we have on here. As the way all of the different packs work is they have 2 unique things. In this case, it's Bark Bear and Canopy's Blessing. Things I will say about Bark Bear and Canopy's Blessing. I don't think either of them work. I'm pretty sure that Canopy's Blessing does actually completely nothing. And I have hard time finding any evidence that Bark Bear functions at all. So yeah, these 2 abilities I don't think are working. I think they are planning on removing the system and replacing it with something else. But yeah, these 2 abilities don't work, so we just put 1 point into them to get to everything else. Every single class in the game puts both of the points into a kin because this is better cooldown for all of your abilities, and you want to use your abilities more, as pretty much every single class in the game. So the first thing to do is to take your 2 specials and then put 2 points into a kin right away. That's just what you do on every single class. Besides that, stats are pretty important. So we have points in Iridis, Saphines, and Mora, which is, of course, Spirit, Grace, and Courage in order. Now, we are on more Courage, because Courage is the best stat currently in the game, and we are on less of the other 2 stats, because we still want, like, a little bit, even though they're not particularly important on this class. I will say, I think that you probably could think about doing on this class is actually dropping out of Spirit completely and putting, like, more points into Grace if you wanted to, just to have your 2 be longer, but the split is more important as these 2 stats don't do a whole lot for you other than going to be part of your weapon scaling if you do try and go for some different weapons than I have. Other things to note, because Bromius as a class does not have any inherent healing, we go through Rooted, which is better defense against being staggered. Doesn't really do anything. And then Wingspan, which also doesn't really do anything because you're not supposed to be dying. To get Sympathy. Sympathy is whenever you smite an enemy and cash in on that smite, you basically regain like half your life every time you do that. Smite is very good. It activates other things we're going to talk about in the kit. And getting a heal on this class that is not just relegated to the potions you can spam is really pretty important, as you need a way to heal. You're kind of supposed to be a tank. Thing we did not get is Everbound. Everbound is also another one that you could actually consider putting some points into instead of Spirit, because this class doesn't super need it. But I've chosen just to go with stats and not the additional health, although Everbound is reasonable to consider. With that, that's basically kind of how all the classes are built. Like, unless you have a class that has good skills here, you're pretty much just taking 1 point in each of them. Those good skills here are pretty rare, with those being pretty much only on Orengal and Tethrin that have relevant skills in these slots. Moving on, the actual statistical spread. So the actual statistical spread is up here. In general, the things that these stats do, because I know this is not well known, Courage is your kind of strength stat. It makes your abilities do more damage. Grace is a range stat, effectively, most of the time. In the case of Bromius, it increases the length of your tube, but does nothing on any of your other abilities. And then Spirit is duration. Now, your 3 does get more duration from Spirit. However, it gets 1 second for every 10 points of Spirit you put in, so you can completely ignore it. We are pumping everything into Courage, which is kind of the usual for a number of different classes. Courage is the current best stat in the game. I think that will probably change at some point, so I wouldn't throw any blesseds on anything to like really hedge for that, especially going into B12. But yeah, Courage is really good. You want to do more damage. You want the enemies to be dead whenever you hit them with things. Speaking of hitting them with things, the weapons that we are going to be using with this are Marrow's Bane, which I would say is currently the best sword in the game. This thing heavy attacks for 314 damage with the Verite Polished that I have on it, which is just tremendous. The defense in this game and how it works is simple math style, which I usually refer to as dogma math for short, from the game Dragon's Dogma, for those who have played that. You very simply, an enemy has 100 armor, you hit them with 100 damage, you do 1 damage, because your damage can't be rounded below 1. If you do 5 more damage, you will do 5 damage. So that is 5 times as much damage as you did before. With that being the case, having more just raw single hit number is kind of the most important thing, and Marrow's Bane delivers the most you can get, with one exception. There is one weapon that can hit harder, and that is Gathanan. Gathanan can hit harder. Problem with Gathanan, this is a spirit weapon that needs you to have at least 20 spirit to even start using it, and that is the big issue. Even if you put a Blessed by Mora on this to make it scale with Courage, you're going to invest so many stats in spirit just being able to hold this thing that I would generally say it's very much not worth it. So that is kind of what's up. Other weapons you can consider, though, as I know Marrow's Bane is a little difficult to acquire. Vetch is one that's available quite early to newer players. This is just a very good Courage sword. You know, you're not looking at 314 here, but you are looking at 266 with a very polished, which is quite powerful. Ignemora, extremely similar, a little bit more damage. Narash, if you happen to get very lucky and get this from the Mockeries, this is at 254, which is just a little bit less than Vetch, but I think the move set on Narash is quite good. And then other than that, you know, we've got like Orin and Umber, which are solid and have a different move set. Sword and Shields are pretty good. And that's mostly rounding out our kind of Courage scaling weapons you're going to want to think about here. A Ducalic is an option, though. This is at 290 damage, but I personally think that Polearm moveset is a pretty big disadvantage at current. Otherwise, we just have, like, you know, starter swords like Wolder that are, you know, you want to get off this as soon as physically possible, and Vetch is pretty easy to craft, so you should think about that. Secondary, before we move off secondaries, let's talk about the magics, which are runes and totems. Rune goes in the middle and the totems go around it. The totems are the animals. So this is what I've chosen to use on this weapon. You can use a lot of different things. The important one here is that I am using the rat. You can see the rat has 3 different buffs. The top left, we have our defensive buffs. Top right, we have our magic buffs. And the bottom, we have our offensive buffs. For the rat, this is 14 physical armor. 14 physical armor is important because our 1 scales off of defensive stats. Now, you do not need the rat. As you can see by its banner, it is the gold. It is the rare one of these totems. That is just what the rat is for swords. It is very good. It's worth farming out and getting it. But if you don't have that, there are other things you can use in this slot. Stability is also a defensive stat, and you can get that from the deer, which is a common. You also get 24 of it instead of 14. That being said, stability is basically completely worthless defensively, because if an enemy wants to knock you down, they just kind of do right now. So I would probably avoid the deer unless you're just trying to completely maximize your damage for some reason, because the higher number of stability than the physical armor will, of course, deal more damage whenever you use your 1. Another option that is also a higher number, actually, is the duck. This is an uncommon, as you can see by the like purple and gray banner. That is an uncommon, and that gives us 17 magic armor. This is also a very reasonable option. You can absolutely go for this. But I've chosen not to for the thing that we're going to show next, and just gone with the high physical defense. Physical defense also kind of more important than the magical defense, as there are fewer magical attacks than there are physical attacks in the game. Otherwise, pretty simple stuff. We are on squirrels for attack speed. Marrow's Bane can be a little slow, and speeding it up is quite good. If you want to opt for more rats, another rare rat for this, you can get 45% damage to a nearby enemy, giving you some AoE on your sword. I generally find that this is very much not necessary, especially with Bromius, because your one is an AoE that's going to kill all of the weak enemies in a given area. And by weak enemies, I sometimes mean also the bosses. So you don't really need this. There's not really any other great options on here. I would love it if the Beaver, who is also a gold, was good, but unfortunately, the attacks reduce enemy armor by 9. This is an effect that only happens one time. So even though it's simple math, and like, theoretically this is 9 more damage, because it doesn't continuously keep removing armor, it's not actually that effective of a buff compared to just hitting more, especially when we're already hitting for such high numbers. Hopefully they buff this in the future to be a thing that can reduce armor more than once, so this can kind of eat away at armor, that kind of beaver gnawing, if you will. But right now we kind of don't have that. Other things that you could think about is the stagger on primary attacks is okay. It's another common. So if that's all you have, then that's fine. I would not ever use the rabbit in this slot. And squirrels are common enough. So if you're not using the rats, you're probably just going to use squirrels, and that's unless they buff beaver. If they do buff beaver in that way, you probably would make room for one of it on this build. In our magic slot, surprisingly, I actually really like the rabbit. Now, you don't have to use this, and the great news is that the replacement for this is just another squirrel. This is additional 1 in 20 smite chance, so 5%. For those that are paying attention, 5% more smite chance is not bad. It'll help you activate your rune more consistently, but what I have found to be really good for activating the rune is actually the brawn, because this is a 1 in 8 chance for smite on kick. This does combine with your weapon's base smite chance, as far as I can tell, and 1 in 8 is quite a lot better than 1 in 20. The other big benefit of this is that Marrow's Bane is very, very good at killing basic enemies in 1 or 2 hits. Kicks do way less damage, meaning you can kind of just kick someone into a wall until they give you the smite that you're trying to look for and get. So you can either heal or buff your damage for a significant amount of time. Speaking of that, our actual what does it do? What does Everflame do when we get it? This gives us 100% flame damage for 20 seconds. Being a plus 100% damage buff in a world where it is simple math time is absolutely incredible. Doubling your damage means that you are actually normally at least tripling your damage because of the way enemy armor works, and very much more often than that, especially on bosses, you are doing up to 6 times the amount of damage you could be doing otherwise. So that don't underestimate the plus 100% buff that you are getting here. If you can activate a smite, you almost assuredly should, and Everflame is definitely worth investing in. So that's all well and good. Whenever we get P12, I'm probably going to talk way more about runes, because they're going to be adding a bunch more, and I'll go over where to get them and what to farm and do all that stuff. But for now, don't worry about it. It comes from Discharged Nimrod if you want to see where he is. I'll point him out on the map, because that's the important one. Our other weapon is Skilter. Now, Skilter is a grace weapon, but thankfully that doesn't matter. If you don't have Skilter, Precles will do exactly the job of what I'm about to describe. But it is worth noting that damage-wise, we don't care about either of these. They both use Gildar Polished. That also doesn't really matter. You don't even need to put anything in these in order for them to do the job that I'm about to discuss. With that, though, the job that I'm about to discuss is that these have 2 defensive slots once you get your Arc Storm. If you kill the Wazard and get Arc Storm, I don't even have this fully leveled, as you can see on the bottom. It still needs to be upgraded. But this is just giving us 2 defensive slots. This is, of course, huge for Bromius, because the 2 ducks that we can put on this, which are just commons, are giving us 15 magic armor apiece. 30 magic armor is a whole lot of magic armor, and it basically lets us focus on physical armor in every other aspect of the build, which is really nice and convenient. Otherwise, on the bottom, we have another really important utility, which is yet another duck for orbiting flyblades, slow enemy movement for 8 seconds. This is effectively kind of a stacking cold proc that you can put on enemies as these flyblades spin around you. And of course, I'm going to talk about kind of what the gameplay loop is with these. And then at the top right, very simple, just a squirrel for additional smite chance to make it so that when those blades are spinning around us, they are helping us activate smite and getting those smite triggers. It is worth noting, Arc Storm is the worst of all of the current runes that we have access to. There's only the 3, of course, but this one gives you an additional hit where lightning comes down and hits the enemy. That is bad, because additional hits are tremendously less useful in this game than they are in something like Warframe. The reason why that is because those are individually reduced by the enemy's armor values, which means that if you do 2 hits for 80 damage against an enemy with 70 armor, you do 20 damage. Versus if you do 1 hit for 160 on that enemy, you'll do 90 damage. So significantly better to have all of your damage boosted on one attack rather than split among many smaller attacks, which is also kind of why in this patch, if you've been wondering why bows feel much worse, that is the reason why. But that is where this is here, giving us a tremendous boost to our defenses. Now, speaking of our defenses, because it is important, let's talk about armor. On the legs, we're using the Arbearer's Brace. These are the Bromius armor. This is exactly where you farm Marrow's Bane from, which I'll point the boss out on that. These have very high physical defense. We're on 7 and 3. These are the highest stat total you can get on pants, though there are ones that are equivalent. If you look in the top right, you can see our stat total at 82. Mendicant Kings are the same stat total here, but the important thing is that if you look here, this is 7 physical, no magical, 3 stability. Stability is the worst of these different stats, so you could make an argument that the 6 and 2, the 8 total between physical and magical, is better here. I'll leave that up to your discretion and, of course, your fashion preferences on what you would like to run with that. The other one that you can consider that is at 10 is Mockery Dothrat, which is 6 total stats split evenly between physical and magical, and then 4 stability, which is, of course, the same amount of stats. But similarly to the reasons why you wouldn't want to do 2 different hits, splitting your physical and magical defenses completely evenly means that on average you'll actually take much more damage, because having enough, you want enough defenses to survive both kinds of attacks, but then going very deep into one type of defense, like our 42 physical defense, for example, is generally going to be a little better, because nearly totally nullifying one type of attack means that you only really need to get out of the way of something magical that's going to be on the stronger side, or a very, very powerful physical attack. Other things that are like worth discussing here, though, there's also Orangol's Greaves, which are fine. These are like, you'll get them with the other Biss armor pretty usually. Other than that, there's kind of nothing else that really competes here. Everything else is pretty considerably lower. Though if you are a newer player, I would tell you to go and seek out the Circade armor, as it is quite good and very accessible for a newer player, at least right now in P11. Chest piece wise, we're on the Arbearer's Pauncher chest piece, so this is 1004. The Arbearer set is just kind of like that. Worth noting, this is not a Biss piece for stat total. The best in slot for stat total is actually Orangol's chest piece. This is 2 more total stats. That being said, those 2 more total stats are in stability. So you have 7 and 3 here versus 10 and 0. So this just has 2 more stability than the 4 stability you get on the Arbearers. And once again, kind of focusing all in on one defensive side more so than splitting, I see as a little bit better. So I would actually say that Orangol's chest piece and the Pauncher are pretty even, but for damage, you are going to get a little bit more damage from the Orangol chest piece. So there is that. The other one to consider is, of course, the Mendicant King's suit. The reason you would consider this one is because it has the same amount of stability, 1 more stat overall, and it is very slightly split. It's 10 and 2, so it's 11 total actual defensive stats that are going to be reducing the damage you take, as opposed to the 10 that you get here. So it's kind of the important stat total. It's the better one. The other option, and again, this is not a great option just because it's split evenly, is a 556, which is an even max stat total with Orangol's. But again, the 6 stability doesn't really do anything right now. So you're splitting evenly between the 2. If that is something that you want to do, it'll give you a lot more damage, but you're going to be, taking much more damage from physical than you would otherwise whenever you don't focus on it a little bit more, and if physical is the most common. Speaking of that, helmet-wise, the Arbearers has no peer. The helm is 703 in the helmet slot, and there's not really much that's getting near that. Like, this 10 stat total is pretty tough. That is 2 higher than the Mockery Ilk gets to, even though with this is being split. The Bastet of the Mendicant King, this is a 6-1, this is a 7 on top, so it's like just the same with just 1 point difference, basically. So that is quite good. It is 1 stat lower, though, because it does have lower stability. That's pretty good, though, overall. 1 lower, again, on Orangol. This is a 414, which is, like, also pretty good. Like, if you just don't have the Arbearer stuff yet, I probably would go Orangol or Mendicant pretty easily. Those are the other kind of best sets in the game as it stands currently. But, like, as I said before, if you are a newer player and you're looking for something to go get, the Circade is very easy to go and get, especially if you have a more experienced player help you go get that armor, as it's just hanging out in the tomb for those that know how to go grab it. with that, let's talk a bit about how this like actually is going to work. Let's actually show it in game. So functionality wise, we've got our first ability, which is this big jump. Big jump comes up and you slam down. All well and good. You've got your second ability, which are the roots, which usually used on boss enemies. You put enemies up on roots, they get stunned. And then you have your third ability, which holds you in place when you cast it, so you do need a moment to get that going. But that is a big armor buff that lasts for like 15 seconds-ish. And then you can do your jump from that to give colossally more damage. And also, especially with this much physical armor that we currently have, you'll be pretty much immune to physical damage at least, while your 3 is up. Your 3 ends with that little noise that you just heard, and you'll see it go on cooldown in the bottom right. That's how you know it's over. Other things. So, you of course have your big ol' cleaver, the Marrow's Bane here, which is very, very good, and you're going to see it do a lot of work as we are going to be attacking the Fort Kernold over here. But I want to talk about Skilter. So Skilter is just alt fire to have it start orbiting you. Also, in the tree for these, once you've leveled this and Precles, you can also get an increase to the duration that they do rotate around you for 2 different scenarios. One being you pulled out your other weapon, which is going to be Marrow's Bane, which is what you want to do anyway. And the other being that whenever you kill an enemy, it also gets more duration. So if you throw these out and then just start going on a killing spree through enemies, which is pretty easy if you're just spamming the heavy attacks of Marrow's Bane or using your 1, you're going to have this available for a long, long time, which is quite good and quite strong. So first and foremost, I'm going to run through the like kind of outside enemies of the graveyard here, which should be some mockery enemies, just to show how this does against the spirit type enemies. These guys also do show off kind of an annoying thing, which is that none of them can be smited. None of these like mockery type enemies can be smited at all, which is quite annoying. I'm going to go down here for this. Let an enemy just hit me. You can see pretty low damage here. These are level 32 enemies, so if you've had them hit you, you know that they hit quite hard. We can just use our 1, and they are all dead. Our 1 scaled with our 3 is quite good. We just need to absorb all of the spirits here. And the they are all dead now is going to be a pretty common running trend here. Didn't even have time to eat them all. Marrow's Bane also very, very high damage for being able to simply remove a situation. So if you needed to kill a bunch of enemies, it's a pretty good way to do so. You can see there is no real functional difference between all of those enemies, whether they were the armored mockeries or not. And that is going to be a running trend with how Bromius treats enemies in general. This group of enemies, just like some normal level like 28 dudes, I'm just going to use this unbuffed so you can see the damage of it in an unbuffed state, as it's not always going to be up. You can see that most of the enemies here have perished. Some of them were unaffected. Which they can block your first ability, which is a notable thing. But usually the enemies that whenever you use this, they just kind of explode and die. Yeah, you're usually going to get like at least 3 kills whenever you do this. Also, of course, rescuing the animals to get those spirits. For those that do not know, you can also, if you're just like looking around the world, you can hold your spirit mode button, which is Alt by default, I think, or Q. I think it's Q and Alt at the same time, or not at the same time, either or. If you see another animal running around the world, you can hold that button and then left click them to start playing music and getting them that way, which I will do on the way through here as I'm just kind of explaining different mechanics that are in the game. This mechanic is also notably, you can see that there's a rabbit there, which I will go and show this. This is the kind of mod gathering. The number of flowers you see shows you what rarity they are. This is 4, so it's an uncommon rabbit. Just play some nice music, which you can rebind and get the rabbit. So yeah, this is a uncommon bunny that we will get there. You do also get the upgrade material for getting these collected that way. As you can see, like the top number above like the song playing gives you the material you need in order to upgrade them. You can also release the spirits to get more of that upgrade material as well. So collecting as many of them as you possibly can is really very incentivized. If you are looking on how to get different spirits, like we also have a beaver here, which is just a common. It's also like very, very generous in terms of like, if you do fail this, it'll go through again. You get 375 of the material there. But yeah, if you do fail this, it'll like run through the notes again and give you more chances at it. So there's no real worries there about like missing out. I don't know how many times it runs through it. I've never had to go through more than twice. But that is a thing there. Yeah, just running up to Kernold, you know, we can As Bromius, we've got a pretty generous cooldown on our 1, so we don't really have to mess with enemies too much. At the front of this gate, I will just like specifically start using Skilter and stuff here, just to show it off, and also of course the like defensive properties of this. You see, magical damage does considerably more to us. We also have that health regain mechanic that they just added. Get that, which is a nice health up for us, and also a considerable damage up too. You can see the massive damage increase. There should be a heavy unit here. And you can see just how much damage that does. Level 31 Banneret style enemy being, absolutely like crushed by Marrow's Bane plus like the buff on it from the rune, which should be expected. Also worth noting for melee runes, they do, whenever you throw them, like they have this pop, this little explosion, which I missed with here. Which is not exactly a big deal. Magical damage coming in. This next enemy, we're going to be able to show this on. We'll be able to show the damage like quite easily with this Banneret Driv that protects the front gate of the fort here. We do want to kill the healer first, because it will be a big problem otherwise. But this enemy has an absolute ton of health. For any of you that have tried to assault this fortress before, you will very much know that. And she very much does not like whenever we hit her with Bromius's 1. Also, now that I have like shown kind of what the damage looks like, I did realize that there was one thing I didn't really specifically talk about that I probably should discuss in the build real quick, which is just kind of where our virtues are. Is under the very polished for us. Yeah, we'll come back out of this in a moment though. But yeah, where our virtues are on this build and like why and how. So I have 8, 10, and 42 courage. The way that you get these points, if you're new, in the top left, you'll see my account level. This is based on the things I've collected. I have literally everything that currently exists in P11. I have every single item. So I have 20 points to go around because it's 4 plus your account level is the baseline. Then from quests, there are, I believe, 2 points you get from quests. One gets from the Bromius quest and one from the Orengal quest. There might be one more floating around somewhere. But you do get a couple of points from quest choices. And that's where kind of all the points come from, besides the ones that we talked about earlier that come from just this investment here, which is 6 points whenever this is at level 3. So these two are 6 points each. And then Mora's Pride at max is 10 points. So 10 courage here. That is where that stuff is coming from. And then the one last thing that I did not mention, which is also these stats, is my talisman, which is my Synod Beljar. This is the best talisman that currently exists in the game. It comes from Ode Chest, just in the open world. But much more commonly, actually, you get them from just boss chests, the boss Ode chests, which are like the really wide metal chests. I've gotten them quite consistently from that. These are all the talismans in the game. Dire Skull, also pretty common from the other overworld chests, is also quite good here. As Grace can usually be kind of the same as the 5 courage you'll get. Nothing else compares to Dire Skull and Synod Beljar. Wazard's Wish could theoretically give you a couple more points of defense, which would scale Bromius in particular, but it's not worth it compared to the 5 courage, of course, and all of that good business. But yeah, a lot of the damage that you are going to be seeing is coming from me having 42 courage. I could have that be 1 point higher at 43 courage, but the 10 grace is used just so I meet my stat minimum for Skilter, which is pretty minor overall. But yeah, with that out of the way, just to like explain like what stats I'm using and why, let's jump into here and defeat some more banners to kind of show off the strength of this. Then we're probably also going to take it to kill some bosses. No archer down here is a bit weird. There's our banneret though. But yeah, this banneret is, I believe, the same statistically as the other. So once their health bar appears, I'll show this without the buff. So you can see the damage we're looking at. You can see pretty much half damage. Shocker, I know. And then we get a really big armor increase. And our 1 is just about cooled down. There it is. This should just kill. There it goes. So yeah, Bromius is tremendously good at killing bosses outright with the huge power you can get out of Bromius's 1. Whenever, of course, you're on full investment. This is, of course, assuming that you have like the maxed out things for just powering yourself up in general. With like, having a very good armor set, having, your stone for Skilter, your rune stone for Skilter, so you get the 2 defensive slots there. all that business is very important. Also, it appears that going into the Nightfold somehow despawned a lot of the basic enemies that were in the fort, which is fine, I suppose. Also, basic enemies that are in the fort, generally you don't need to do anything crazy for them. Marrow's Bane will do just fine at taking them down. Very convenient chests like these are ones that you can get the Synod Belljar from, which we might actually see me get here. Pop these open and see what we can grab there. Of course, always full of a bunch of your owed materials, the boxes as well. Notable thing about the boxes that you might have noticed is that Bromius' one does break these and has a pretty decent range on it. So if you do just want to like bust some boxes up and get all the materials that come out of those, if you need like patch leather, drox, whatever, Bromius is going to kind of passively do that for you, which is very nice. Then we have the big only respawns once every 3 hours boss of the tower here. This enemy, if you've fought him normally and you know his moveset is kind of nonsense, so we're going to put the nonsense right back onto Malrog and hopefully kill him in 2 hits. No. Don't think I need to wait particularly for my one to come back up. But yeah, there's our Blessed. He does have a good Blessed drop rate, though I think I've only gotten Gildars from him. And also, he will drop Grin. This is also the enemy that you get Dwellian from, for those of you looking for the fancy longsword. He's also one that is able to drop that. Then just because we want to finish out the fort here, we will get rid of our big old red balloon here. Yeah, that's like a pretty basic look into what Bromius does. You know, if you're running into like tougher stuff, usually if you're killing like, you know, Night Stag and stuff like that is whenever you're going to use Skilter, or if you're fighting some of the field bosses. To talk about the field bosses real quick, just because I'm probably not going to have time to make a video on this, and should just include it here instead. Right here in the just southeast of our Fort Kernold, that is where discharged Nimrod spawns. He is the one that drops your current melee rune. And then over here in Sedai's Stake, this swamp is where Wazard is. He's on the north side of this swamp, always is. They respawn once every 3 hours. This is where your magical rune is. If you're looking for the other rune, it's up here in this unmarked location, this kind of circle that's here in the northwest. And that is the spider pit, where the big old spider will drop your like dexterity rune. If you are looking for that for your bows. But yeah, that is what's going on there. I guess, I mean, just to like showcase how much damage this does, I will show the blessing farm. So if you are looking to farm blesseds, this is it's the best class to do it, is what I would say. That is done up here. This is where the stag spawns only at night. You can see we have night in 11 minutes. So we're going to time skip to that. But I'll probably also cut to a clip before I do that of me just running down and killing Nimrod, who can be a bit of a problem as well. Other fun thing about Bromius, I know it's possible to cancel fall damage, but Bromius has it inherently as a thing that it just can kind of do, and traveling at a diagonal can, you know, give you some good times traveling down mountains. But yeah, let's go kill Discharged Nimrod, and then I'll show this fighting the Stag for the Blessed farm, if those of you are interested in farming that before we get to P12 for whatever reason. And that'll probably wrap up the video. Hopefully this explained a bunch of the stuff about how the game works right now. And also showed off Bromeus, which is the new thing. Sorry it's taken so long, but a lot of you that have been hanging out in the streams and all that, we've been talking about the update a whole lot over there. That's usually going to be the better place to be asking stuff, especially whenever P12 launches. Whenever the day P12 launches on the 25th, I'm going to be streaming, shock and surprise, I know, as someone who has completed literally everything that Soulframe has to offer up to its current P11 update. I'm very excited for the big stuff that we are looking to be getting with Founders Access. I'm, of course, going to buy Max Founders. I don't know. I mean, do I even need to say that? I think that seems pretty obvious. So I'll be showing all that stuff off for those of you that want to see things with all that business. But yeah, that is my plan there. We're just about at Nimrod now, so I might as well just, like, go over here and see the damage. Notable thing, though, that is different from stream, though, because I actually had time to do some testing and some like proper like off-stream research. I was running for a long time on stream. I was running Grace on this class because, you know, traditional logic with how Grace has worked has been that it is a range stat and would increase the range of my one. Totally doesn't. So that's why, if anyone that has been watching the streams and seeing what like my stat total was, like a 30-20-10 split, between Courage, Grace, Spirit. The reason that that has changed is because, yeah, Grace is like actually mostly useless on this class unless you want to increase the range of your 2, and your 2 already has pretty good range as it stands, and I use it very rarely besides. So that is kind of the over-under there. Yeah, I'm very excited for the upcoming Founder stuff. Like, it seems like it is a little bit early, it feels like, but it also seems like they've kind of been sandbagging a lot of content. It does, like, of course, remain to be seen if there's going to feel like there's going to be enough for Founders. But at the very least, I'm interested to, like, see what they've got prepared for us for the Founders launch. See on Nimrod, the 2 coming in here, because Nimrod is much more defensive than most other enemies. You can see the problem with it, though, happening there as well. We'll throw another slam in there. Big old damage. Get some of those chunks in with Marrows. He does hurt quite a bit, though. This is an easily avoided attack. Nimrod, I would say, is like arguably the strongest enemy in the current patch. But he is, you know, not that tough. Wow. It took me about 2 months to get that. But there's another. He does drop it, as you can clearly see. Yeah, there's also, you know, some varied and stuff and the various things that you can have here. He does drop some of some weapons and things, but really you're going to be killing him if you're just looking for the rune. I would recommend not fighting him until you at least have like a polished joinery on your weapon, because otherwise he just has so much armor normally. Yeah, I'm just going to head up to where the Stag is here. There will be a cut. The Stag is up right here is where the Stag spawn is. I'll kind of explain how that farm is, just to have it also be in one video that can come out that hopefully everyone can enjoy, and has a ton of information. So for, I guess, those of you that are interested in like, hey, how's Bromius? How was P11? How's the house? I kind of started recording this, and it was a Bromius builds video, and then I kind of stumbled into it being a review of P11 and how things are kind of going, and like what the important stuff is and how things are working. So, you know, the things that were good are still good. O Tempest is still, like, I would say, the best class in the game. O Zelda is still the best starter. Going into P12, I will be making more videos on this channel to keep more up to date, especially with Founders launching and people being able to spend money on this game. I think it's very important that I do what I'm supposed to do and inform you guys on if it's a reasonable decision to spend money on this game, or like what to invest in statistically wise, what's worth farming, and so on and so forth. Yeah, I'll see you all up at the Stag so we can beat the Stag up and hopefully get some blesseds. Oh yeah, I realized I'm hurt on the way over here, so I can show off the thing with the kicking. These enemies who are vulnerable to smite, you can just do like 1 damage over and over to them and just like kick them until they finally trigger smite for you. If you just want to like use them as like a health pylon, just for some healing. Even whenever they're like high level, just like doing rapid kicks will usually kind of hard stun them, and will just like build up their meter. And even if it does fully stun them, you can keep kicking them to get the smites in. So if you do need to heal, that's why the rabbit is in there. Again, you can just use the squirrel if you're not about that life. But it is nice for a little portable heal that doesn't use my potions. Okay, we have arrived to where we are supposed to be, just between this little town here to my north, the ruins here that go down into a glades, and this little encampment. Usually a bunch of mockeries there, and then this encampment, and then this little field is the important one, which is right here on the map. You can see it's marked. It is right here in the top northeast there, just above this Glades of Anduin entrance. There's a Durmak city over here. The town that's here is the Skelfies. And we also have, as you can see in the bottom, 24 seconds until it is night here. So this field is where we're going to be trying to return back to a number of times during a night to kill as many stags as possible, to hopefully get as many blessed joineries as possible. The drop rate is pretty good, and it can drop all the different kinds of blesseds. There are 2 ways to respawn it. One is to go into the glades there, go in the door, and then come back out the door, and then it should be respawned back out here. The danger with that is that sometimes you will respawn at just some other random exit from the glades. That's just a bug that happens, and that is a thing that can occur. So be warned, that'll end your night farm of the Stag real quick if that happens. The other is to just log out. If you log out, you'll end up just east of here. It's further away, but it will also always consistently send you there, so that's a good option. Day in 15 minutes, so now it is considered night. You'll notice there's no stag here. Wait, why is that? The reason is because it just happened to not spawn. Easy way to make it spawn is just to go into the Nightfold and then back out of the Nightfold until it does spawn. And there it is. So that is the easy way to get this done. This stag in particular is the highest level stag on the map, I believe. This is the one where you're going to want to throw these first, and you're also going to want to buff yourself before you slam down with your one. So it'll stumble you, throw this out, jump, slam in. That will usually get a smite going, which is good, and also freeze it in place with that duck upgrade that we put on there. We do get hit with the kick. That is a hard and consistent knockdown. It has one little just sliver of health left. We are buffed up, and there you go. That is a Blessed by Safine Gildar. We're going to see if the gate wants to work for us. Also, of course, drops the Garen armor, like all of the stags do, so that is another thing that you can be getting while you are here. Okay, we can just run right down into here, see if we can't not get the bug. It is pretty rare, but it is a thing that I did want to note can happen for you to be sent to just, you know, Timbuktu, BFE, what have you. Yeah, just to run into this glades, get it to spawn in, all that good business. Usually take like a little bit of a run past like kind of the main entryway to let that door start closing and then run back. The loading will begin again. It will reload this zone. If you're lucky, the stag will just be there. Otherwise, you can use the same in and out of the Nightfold technique to try and get it to respawn, which it looks like that is what we're going to have to do. If you aggro that group of enemies, if you're not on like Bromius, which can just kill them all pretty much instantly, it's usually faster to relog if the stag is not just already out here. So that is a consideration for you to make as well. Yeah, nothing on this one. Sometimes it takes a couple. If you're very unlucky, it'll take a lot. Which we might be very unlucky. I do try and like change my position a little bit in the overworld, as it sometimes feels like that does have like some kind of an effect on it, like maybe going higher up off this hill. That could just be like, you know, confirmation bias of, oh, I moved and then it spawned, but, you know. Sometimes it'd be like that. It is worth noting in the bottom, the time remaining. We have 13 minutes left of this night, so this is not a consideration here. Once you're under 3 minutes remaining on night, it won't spawn. There it is. Took a couple extra tries on that one. I really wanted us to make us think it wasn't going to spawn in. But yeah, once you're down to 3 minutes left, the stag will no longer like start spawning. So you have to keep that in mind. Okay, see if we can get the clean kill here. Clean in and out, 1 minute adventure. Blessed by Mora Faybolt, one of the best joineries in the game, as courage is the best stat currently. So very, very nice. But yeah, very, very quick to farm here. I'll just do one more so that you can see it, and then that will wrap us up for the video. Obviously, this also quite effectively, I would say, shows off the strength of Bromius in terms of farming something like this. The only other class that can really farm stuff this same way is Tethrin, with its one buff. It's kind of the only other class currently in the game that is going to be able to kill the stag this fast, and that's only if every single one of the hits of your melee combo connect with the stag. So sometimes that can be a consistency problem, especially since the stag will sometimes have a weird hitbox. It is also worth noting that if you are going to be running Tethrin just because you like it, or maybe you picked up like the Founders Pack for Tethrin, this Marrow's Bane primary, Skilter secondary, at least for now, prior to new content, is what I would run on Tethrin, just straight up 1-for-1. It's good on pretty much every class. You can run on Ode Tempest. Honestly, it's good on Oselda too, realistically, but Oselda usually tilts more towards a bow user. But if you're not about that life and you want something that you can, you know, whackus bonkus somebody with, there we go, got it in one. It's quite good for that. Throw our 3 buff out. Also, you can see the gray health bar here. It's probably worth me mentioning what that means. So I swapped weapons and it went away. All that's telling you is that your current damage is underneath the armor of the enemy. So like it will like check the weapon you're holding and be like, you can only do 1 damage to this enemy, and that's like supposed to be your warning. Very often the enemy health bar will be gray, but like if you just do heavy attacks usually do like double damage. So you'll do 100 times more damage with a heavy attack than you will with a basic attack. This is another thing where, and we'll see if my prediction is correct. Long term, I don't know if this style of defensive scaling is sustainable. Usually it only works in like a very, very tightly considered and meticulously planned defense system between enemies and players. Because what it means is low-level enemies can't hurt the player, and the player can kill them instantly. And then higher-level enemies are balanced, where the moment you surpass them, they become nothing. But while they surpass you, they're totally insurmountable. And that's a very weird place for a games as a service to be, because ostensibly there would be a lot of power creep and stuff. I do think that the change to beavers that I mentioned earlier in this video could make for probably making beavers nearly required, but would make for an easier way to have enemies with higher armor, where you'd have to consider what spirits you're bringing, which would probably be that you bring beaver a lot. But, you know, this, that, and the other thing. But yeah, the game is still in alpha. Founders is about to launch, though, and I'm pretty excited for it. And hopefully you guys are excited for Bromius. Bromius is a really good class. I would probably put it in the top 3 of the current classes in the game. It's definitely Ode Tempest, Bromius, Oselda, Orengal, Tethrin. Hitchy on the order of the bottom 3, if I'm honest. But top 2 being Ode Tempest and Oselda. I think the competitor there is probably Bromius. If we wanted to move Oselda down to 3rd, I think Bromius has a strong argument for being the 2nd best pact in the game, once you're fully built out with it and have the kind of appropriate armor values to start nuking stuff. Anyway, though, this has been a very long video that's kind of been all of my thoughts about just like P11 and the way that it's gone down, and like kind of what the new stuff is and how the new systems work, which has hopefully been cool for you. You should really know what Bromius can do and if it's worth it now.